brought the castle home from a town 50 miles away on one of the hottest days of the summer. This was not built from a kit, and we estimate that it was probably built in the late 80s or early 90s. This is a photo that the seller had sent us before we asked to look at the castle in person. These two rooms were a kitchen and a dining room. This room was the kitchen space. Notice the full-size clay tile flooring. The bricking was a plastic sheet. Some of the room's ceiling fixtures had what looked like a condiment cup from a takeout restaurant attached. We are not sure what the function of that was. This room also didn't have a true ceiling. We are not certain if these beams were intended to be exposed for a rustic look. This was the dining room. I thought the size was underwhelming for a castle. The same clay tile that was used in the kitchen was also used in here. Curious decor choices, Spanish tile with toile print wallpaper. We removed the ceiling to find out that it was a thin cardboard. The flooring was removed to reveal that the castle was constructed from particle board. We wanted to make one space out of the two spaces by removing the wall. Our original plan was to make this space a dining room. As time went on, we changed our minds and decided that we wanted the dining room in another space, and this one would become a parlor. Here's the new larger space with the wallpaper stripped away. The castle had custom peaked windows with thin plastic panes with wire mesh over them. We didn't like those, and eventually the peaks were squared off. A paper template was made of the floor, which also mirrors the ceiling. This template will be used to cut wood to smooth out the ceiling and floor. The same template will also be used for cutting the ceiling paper and flooring. Here the new ceiling has been glued and is being propped up by wooden supports while the glue dries. Next, the wooden floor was glued down. Clamps and paint cans helped to weigh it down while drying. The squared-off window peaks caused the tops of the windows to be really close to the ceiling. Window trim and crown molding placement will be a challenge. The window framing was next. Wood was measured, cut, and fit for the space. These will later be stained. Tracery panels and panes will be added later. The room was primed and then wired for electricity. There will be chandeliers, a sconce, fireplace logs, and mantel lamps in this room. As in the other space, an arch will be installed to go between this room and the next one. This room divider was intended for another space, but now it will be added to this room to separate the main portion from the alcove. We chose this bird and floral pattern wallpaper for the room. Here, the room is all papered. The window frames were stained and the panes were painted with a gloss to mimic leaded glass. Tracery panels made out of chipboard were cut by a Cricut machine and inserted in the frames. The frames then were glued in place and exterior trims were added. Gingerbread trims were added on the top and bottoms of the windows to have a more castle-y appearance. Next, the interior trims were added to the windows. The flooring tile was added. This matches the other two connected rooms on the entire first floor. Baseboards were cut, stained, and then glued in place. My pool table themed drink coasters held them in place while drying. At first, we were going to put wainscoting in this room as we did in the dining room. However, there isn't actually a lot of wall room to show them off due to the windows. A lot of tricky cuts we thought would make it look sloppy. Ceiling paper was installed and resin-stained crown molding was glued in place and propped up with wooden supports. These were tricky cuts. Since the top of the windows are so close to the ceiling, we didn't put crown molding above the windows or top window trim. Like in the dining room, we are hoping that the curtains will conceal that there is no crown above the windows. Next, the curtains were installed. These were from a seller on Etsy. They are like the ones in the dining room, except this time they're green with gold trim. Resin ceiling medallions were painted and then placed. The stained room dividers were put in place. The next few photos show the furnished room. Accessories and artwork will be added later once the whole castle is finished. The fireplace came with the castle, but was in another room. Because of age, it was yellowed and the gold paint was flaking off. It was repainted with added veining to suggest marble. Two separate spaces that were once the kitchen and a small dining room were gutted and changed into a large room that was first intended as a dining room, but now is the castle parlor.